The dark fleet of Chaos Marine vessels languished in the cold void between planets. They had been raiding in this region for decades, since a tear across reality had suddenly given them new avenues of ingress into the Imperium, and they had hunted mightily. Systems had been smashed, entire populations taken into their vast slave haulers, new bodies for pleasure and sustenance, new souls for sacrifice and satisfaction. But no matter how many they took, no matter how large the haul, they never lasted long enough. All just grist for the mill, and so the pattern continued, the cycle perpetuated itself. And it was one that all aboard the attack ships had thoroughly enjoyed. They had little resistance in this region. They preferred it if their victims did resist, of course. But there were so few in the galaxy that could match the old legionaries of the Crusade, the veterans of the Long War. The old captain, now warlord of this band of horrors, turned on his second. The lug had gotten his rank by dint of dueling and assassination, but for all his success, he was, at heart, an utter clod. "Flip a coin," said the captain. "What?" his second responded. "You asked what they were, what lineage, so just flip a coin." "I do not understand," his second said. "Of course not. You're an idiot. But you're our idiot, I guess, so I'll explain. We're in the Imperium Nihilis, so it's a coin toss. Heads, it's the Sons of the Angel. Tails, it's the Sons of the Empire Builder. Either way, we win. We'll either tear them apart as they'll be using that old standby, the Codex. Tough but doable. Or they'll be angels. And we'll drag them into traps, easily goaded the Sons of the Angel. All we need do is threaten the civilian populations, near as predictable as the salamanders. They'll charge in to try to be the heroes. Pathetic." At that, the captain turned and addressed his communications officer. "Full attack! Let's get this done." And with that, his fleet fired up their engines, broke their cover, and headed towards the central planet of the Hubris system. The captain chortled as he imagined the eyes of the bridge crews of the Imperial vessels when their auspex lit up. The recaf that would be spat across screens by the mewling wretches he was about to slaughter. He had made use of every celestial object, planet, asteroid field, moon, meteor, in his stealthy approach of the lush planet at Journey's End. And it had worked wonders. The Imperial defences were caught flat-footed as his mini-armada leapt at the prize. The small escorts around the planet were smashed to pieces by long-range fire, not concerned with hitting the planet behind. His fleet had enjoyed every last missile, blast and ordnance ploughing into said orb, let alone the effect their combined fire had on the defending flotilla, which were, 2-1, all now gone. And over the next 5 hours, the landers descended into the atmosphere. The strike cruisers lobbed down their Charybdis drop pods. The landing was in place, and none could stay their advance, or so they thought. But all of this was only the introduction. The main event still loomed. For on this world there was a chapter monastery. Nothing was surer. They could not make out the defences of the place, shielded as it was, but the energy output from its core was the telling point. It could be nothing but a chapter monastery. But it was not yet in range. The fleet had approached from the other side of the planet and kept it between the two. Any chapter worth its salt would have dangerous weaponry, dangerous enough to potentially threaten the fleet, even in high orbit. So the veterans landed out of its sight, ready to assault it from the ground, which was their preference anyway. For near every Chaos Marine there was itching to get into the ranks of the corpse worshippers. They knew that the Marines might even be these new larger versions, the primaris Marines, but it did not cause even one iota of doubt, for the reasons already given by the captain. They simply did not fear them, not then. The main force made planfall in mere hours. Of course, they could not do as they would during the Crusade. They did not have a battle barge. If they had, the entire landing would have taken only minutes. But land they did, and the transports took them as close to the fortress as they deemed possible, without setting off too many alerts, which could have threatened their landing craft. Who knew the range and capability of the Imperial Dog's turrets? So better to be cautious, at least at this stage. Forward they went, some bands in rank and file, order maintained somehow despite the predations of their Chaos Lords. Yet still they were Marines. Others charged forward as if they were about to rampage through a block of hivers. They felt no fear whatsoever. Why should they? They knew the enemy. They knew what they would do. So it was a foregone conclusion. So they laughed as they sped forward on bikes and skimmers. It was all going to be so easy. The first shock was simple enough. The next few were more serious. But it all really hinged on that first shock. First, the Chaos officers attempted to gain contact with their scout elements. There was nothing. They ate static. But it was when they crested the last rise, coming in as close to the fortress as possible before breaking cover, they all stood aghast. For there was a mountain before them all right, but it was sheen and bare, the snows on its peaks virgin and untouched. There were no crenellations and approaches. There were no walls and no batteries to rain fire down upon them. There was nothing but a small camp with a void shield and a power generator, but only field equipment, and unattended. The leader, the former captain, looked into the sky with a weary sigh, as he knew that he had been duped. And the rest was no surprise to him at all. For with his helmet's enhanced senses, he had seen the emblem on the flags that fluttered there. Wolves were on them, and he knew. But of course he did not say, for he tricked himself with lies. It could not be them. They were in the Imperium Sanctus. They were half a galaxy away, so it could not be them. It had to be some pretentious scions of Leman that absorbed the banners of greater warriors while they were so distant. But deep down, without understanding how or why, he knew. When the Vox screamed into life, it was to report that his landing craft had been annihilated by Astartes' assault forces. So quickly. His fleet made contact, and reported that they were under sustained close-quarters assault. A fleet including an Astartes strike cruiser had been hiding right behind the further moon, and they fell on his ships while ascending back out of the atmosphere when they were most vulnerable. They were being mauled and had no choice but to withdraw immediately or be destroyed to a one. These were not Ultramarian or Codex tactics. These were not those of the blood either. And deep down, he knew. He knew who he had stumbled upon, impossible as it was. And he knew he, like all of his band, were dead men. Story continued after the lore. Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the forces, factions, and chapters of the Warhammer 40k universe, the grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace, there is only time for war. And today, we should be dealing with one of the most exciting changes to the lore since the return of Reboot Leman. A need that has been crying out to be met. The ability to make successor chapters for those legions who were previously barred by canon from having them. And today, we shall be taking a look at one of the new chapters, but a nomadic one of the lineage of Leman Russ. Of course, I can only be speaking of the Wolfspears. Now initially, there were no successor chapters for either the Salamanders or the Space Wars. Well, there was the Wolf Brothers, but their Geneseed broke down and their chapter has not existed for quite some time. Yet now, with the advent of the Primaris Marines and the Indomitus Crusade, these things are now possible. As they should be, for I believe in permissive settings, not exclusionary ones. So this, as far as I am concerned, is an excellent move by Games Workshop. Now not all are enamoured with the Primaris Space Marines. I get it. Better than most, I get it. I really do. But they exist. They are part of the new canon, so I need to reflect them as positively and enthusiastically as I do anything else, any other faction. Because I pride myself on making videos, making entries, for near every faction, group or organisation, or I hope to. I still have many to do properly, of course, but ask yourself this one question. Would you want me to deride your faction when it comes to their turn in the guides? I sincerely hope that that is not the case. And if so, then please curtail your ire, for it avails you naught. The Primaris Marines exist, and that isn't going to change any time this decade. Now these are a brand new chapter, as of the 9th edition, so there is little art, so apologies that I will have to filter and use some Space Wars stuff as well. Needs must when the devil drives. Now that disclaimer over, let us get into the meat and true veg of the entry. And so, as usual, for the very basics, let us lean on existing wisdom. To quote, The Wolfspear. The Wolfspear is a loyalist Space Marine chapter, comprised entirely of Primaris Space Marines, created from the lineage of the Space Wars and raised during the Ultima founding of approximately 999, Millennium 41. Like their ancestral chapter, the Wolfspear do not conform to the diktats of the Codex Astartes, but instead make use of many of the same customs and organizational designations as the Space Wars. The Wolfspear's intimidating pack-hunting tactics permeate every strategic strata of their chapter combat doctrine. Packs of stealthy killers swiftly destroy the enemy's vanguard. Squadrons of swift vehicles encircle macro cities, and prowling rapid strike vessels gut larger spacecraft in the void. The Wolfspear's precision strikes sever avenues of escape, sowing confusion. Static-laced howls fill enemy vox nets, or echo within foes' skulls as the chapter's Iron Priests and Rune Priests unleash tempests of terror. As the foe desperately try to repulse attacks on multiple fronts, flinching at half-seen blurs, suddenly the Wolfspear strike. At a single point from multiple directions, their packs tear the throat from an enemy already in fear. Chapter History. Through the bloodshed and horror that spreads from the Great Rift, the enemies of the Imperium are stalked by the fearsome Wolfspear. Their brooding mind reveals a dark mindset, and their grim brotherhood of dedicated hunters seldom laugh. One of the Ultima Founding's most unsettling chapters of Primaris Marines, the Wolfspear are proud inheritors of the genetic legacy of the Wolf King. Founded during the early years of the era Indomitus, the Wolfspear are blood brothers of the fabled Space Wars, and like them, descendants of the Primarch Leman Russ. Cold and taciturn, they are nevertheless possessed by a powerful weird, a spiritual force or destiny that makes them excellent hunters. Some may even say, predators. Despite their relatively recent founding, the grim Space Marine Brotherhood known as the Wolfspear have already proven themselves to be fearsome and ruthless hunters, honoring the genetic legacy of their primarch. Wherever they stalk, the Wolfspear prey upon the enemies of mankind with a dark hunger, intensified by blood-sworn battle oaths and a fierce loyalty to kith and kin. The Wolfspear chapter owes its origins to Reboot Guilliman's arrival on Fenris at the head of the Indomitus Crusade fleet. Responding to the calamity of the Great Rift, the Ultramarines Primarch and Lord Commander of the Imperium came in person to the Space Wars, bringing with him primaris Space Marines drawn from the chapter's own Geneseed and the technological means to forge more of their kind. Some, he proposed, would join the ranks of the Space Wolves themselves, while others could be used to form new chapters, furthering the lineage of Leman Russ, while adopting the new weapons and doctrines that characterized the Ultima founding. Guilliman's gifts evoked complex emotions from all of the chapters they reached, but few responses were as fractious and fiery as those voiced in the Fang. Though the great companies had been severely depleted by recent campaigning, the primaris warriors presented to the gathered wolf lords were not initially embraced as packmates. Lips curled and hands tightened around weapon grips at the scent of the newcomers. The Space Wolves had not fought alongside these warriors. They had not welcomed them back, bloody but unbound from the lone hunt, nor shared fireside tales and flagons of burning blood with them in the halls of the Fang. As such, some wolf lords argued for the outright rejection of the reinforcements. When Gunnar Redmoon roared that he would sooner hunt his quarry alongside a dozen true sky warriors than 100 others with whom he had never feasted, there were several growls of agreement. Others held their tongues, but brooded warily, distrusting what they saw as an effort to curb the independent tactical traditions of Fenris, but sensing in the Grey Shields the keen instincts and proud bearing of true sons of Russ. As Great Wolf, it fell to Logan Grimnar to rule on the matter. Having sternly counselled his wolf lords to respect the will of Guilliman as the Imperial Regent during his visit, Grimnar afterwards voiced the Kin Pact Declaration, a formal recognition of the Space Wolves' successors. Whether forged in the Fang or otherwise, all were sons of the Wolf King, and all should be permitted to prove their mettle in battle or earn the scorn of their battle brothers. However, it was also the Great Wolf's duty to safeguard the ancient fighting creed and customs of his kin, and Grimnar's declaration made clear that the new Successor chapters, and any primaris marine warriors joining the Space Wolves themselves, should uphold the ancient customs of the Space Wolves, not an Ultramarian ideal. Thus, each primaris pack assumed the traditional roles of Bloodclaws, Grey Hunters, and so on, as befitted their tactical strength and experience. First Slain. The newly formed Wolfspear chapter began life as an understrength, fleet-based Space Marine force, combining primaris Marine brethren who had voyaged with Reboot Guilliman and other primaris Fenrisian initiates elevated to the status of Sky Warriors in the traditional way. The Wolf Priests being unwilling to close off the recruitment path they themselves had once walked. Before Reboot Guilliman's crusade fleet reached Fenris, the primaris Marine warriors that voyaged with him faced the flames of battle many times. From ambushes in the void to full-scale confrontations on planets of high strategic worth, Grey Shields drawn from many genetic lineages fought side by side at the Primarch's command. Nonetheless, in those early hostilities, the scions of Leman Russ quickly gravitated towards each other, forming hunting packs with those that they instinctively trusted as brothers, and keeping others at a measured distance. In the course of these bloody conflicts, there were many Grey Shields who fell before their chapter service could begin. To the primaris sons of Russ, those lost from their bloodline came to be known as the First Slain, held in great honour for the feats of arms that brought their kin passage to Fenris. This is particularly true of the Wolfspear, and from them an oath sworn upon the firstling is as sombre and binding as any they can utter. Indeed, it is thought that the pale grey livery of the Wolfspear may owe something to the colourless plate in which the Grey Shields fought, and though often embellished with runic details on furs, it serves to remind them of the grey-clad heroes who await them in the realm of Morkai. Among these warriors, those of a similar disposition found further common ground, forming bonds that endured within the Space Wolves' Successor chapters. Hence many of the psychically inclined amongst them became the nucleus of the esoteric Ice Fangs chapter, while the grim-faced huntsmen who preyed from the shadows found a natural home in the Wolfspear. Dark Terror. The first Wolfspear warriors showed clear signs of their ancestry. Keen-eyed and hungry for the hunt, their pointed canines marked them out as sons of Leman Russ. They bared these fangs only rarely, however, showing little emotion behind their cold predator's poise. To those amongst the space wolves accustomed to bullish camaraderie, this brooding mane made the Wolfspear seem aloof and untrustworthy, but the more calculating of the wolf lords looked beyond the coldness of their new kin and saw a fiercely loyal spirit. Eric Morkai was particularly struck by the focus and killer instinct the Wolfspear displayed during their early deployments. The chapter showed a preference for swift terror tactics and brutal executions, such as Eric Morkai favoured himself, and in a rare gesture of respect, the taciturn Wolflord seconded some of his most experienced wolf scouts to the Wolfspear to impart their deadly hunting methods. The Wolfspear also found favour with Logan Grimnar, who saw much in them that the Wolf King himself would have praised. The dour warriors of the Wolfspear possessed a strong weird. Even Jarl Stormcaller spoke of it. They would be the Grim Wolves, the Dark Terror, sent into the void to slaughter without mercy. To bolster their numbers, Grimnar granted the new chapter additional warriors drawn from his own great company. A small number of these were hoary firstborn veterans who stoically crossed the Rubicon Primaris to guide their new pack brothers in battle. Others were Space Wolf initiates, originally earmarked for Grimnar's own champions of Fenris' great company, who became some of the first Fenrisians to receive the gift of Belisarius' Call and be transformed into Primaris Marines at the hands of the Wolf Priests in the Fang. This influx of warriors, young and old, forged close bonds of brotherhood between the Wolfspear and their parent chapter, and being as yet lacking a homeworld of their own, the Wolfspear began to regard Fenris in a totemic sense, a primal presence reaching out to them across the stars, like a moon obscured by cloud, but known by its diffused light. Many Fenrisian customs are maintained by the Wolfspear aboard their vessels and during battle, and though pride in their own pack identity comes first, the chapter's rune priests and wolf priests speak well of the Space Wolves as their elder kindred. Grim Starfarers. Since their inception, the Wolfspear have been predominantly an itinerant hunting force, prowling the stars without a homeworld to call their own. This absence of a permanent planetary headquarters suits their combat doctrine well. Those who dwell in shadow can choose their battles, encircling their foe unseen before leaping for the kill. Drawing parallels with the denizens of ancient Fenris, the chapter's wolf priests assert that the ocean-born kraken is a more elusive foe than the ice bears who dig their dens all too predictably in the mountains. Nonetheless, prolonged campaigning puts logistical strains on even the most resourceful commanders, and like other roaming Adeptus Astartes chapters, the Wolfspear have established clandestine outposts in a number of key strategic star systems. Whether veiled by inhospitable cloud storms or delved deep into the rock of seemingly barren moons, these secret hunting lairs allow the Wolfspear to rearm and plan their next excursions far from the gaze of their enemies. In rare cases, these scattered sites also serve an additional purpose as recruitment points, when the human population is deemed rugged and strong-willed enough to yield potential aspirants. Not by chance was the chapter's name chosen. The Wolf Lords of Fenris had agreed that a force should be formed that could be cast like a javelin deep into the Imperium Nihilus and other Forsaken reaches, ranging far ahead of the war zones prioritized by the Indomitus Crusade fleets. The name also held a deeper resonance for some, evoking the legendary Spear of Russ gifted to their Primarch by the Emperor. Just as Leman Russ had received that artifact reluctantly, but learned to respect its great power, so now Reboot Guilliman offered the primaris Space Marines to the Wolf King's sons, a potent new weapon at a time of peril. Hunters in Darkness. Founded beneath Fenrisian skies stained by the fell light of the Cicatrix Maledictum, the Wolfspear have never known respite from the war to salvage and renew the All-Father's realm. They are the grim scions of the era Indomitus, bred for a desperate hour and well adapted to hunt in the darkness. The earliest deployments of the Wolfspear chapter were vanguard strikes ahead of major Indomitus Crusade offensives. Before the massed forces of the Astra Militarum and other Imperial agents made impact, the Wolfspear would seek out and destroy the enemy's deadliest assets, severing chains of command and sowing disarray before leaping back into the shadows. In these missions, the chapter's Jarldoms competed with each other to demonstrate their prowess, mocking their peers for any operations they deemed too slow, too scattered in their application of force. Imperial allies soon found the Wolfspear to be restless of spirit, quickly jaded by protracted battle. Sooner rather than later, the wilderness of space would call them away, and a fresh pursuit would begin. Before long, the impact turned the gaze of the whole chapter towards the Imperium Nihilus. This benighted expanse had been proposed as the Wolfspear's eventual hunting ground, even while Guilliman still sat in the hall of the Great Wolf on Fenris. But few had foreseen the draw that region would so quickly exert upon the chapter. In a rare mustering of their full strength, the 7 Jarls of the chapter gathered their fleets at the mouth of the Nachmund Gauntlet, the primary known passage through the Great Rift from the Imperium Sanctus to the Imperium Nihilus, and prepared to hunt on an unprecedented scale. Carving momentous oaths upon their blades and battleplate, and howling the Wolf King's name, they embarked into the abyss beyond the light of the Emperor. How the Wolfspear have fared on this perilous voyage can be gleaned only from distorted fragments and nightmarish echoes. All that is certain is that the Jarl's fleets soon became separated, and the chapter's scattered sons now stalked the Emperor's foes in numerous sectors cut off from the Astronomicon's light. Whether they remain the hunters or are now hunted themselves by horrors untold, nothing but death will break the oaths they have sworn. Notable campaigns. Guardians of the Pit of Raukos. During the Indomitus Crusade, Guilliman and his forces fought a major battle against the forces of Chaos who had emerged from the Pit of Raukos, an ancient warp rift located in the star system that orbited the dying sun designated 108 Capellus 9. The pit was an old anomaly, predating the violent turbulence in the warp that had created the Great Rift, and was located in a region of wilderness space that had never been claimed by the Imperium during the Great Crusade. The Pit of Raukos was a deep rift in real space that was used frequently by both demons and Chaos Space Marine warbands to launch raids into the surrounding Imperial space with relative impunity. Guilliman's Grey Shield Astartes defeated the forces of Chaos near the pit, finally clearing the system of all the servants of the arch-enemy. In the wake of the Imperial's victory, and after the end of this first phase of the Indomitus Crusade, Guilliman ordered the Wolfspear to take up permanent garrison duties near the Pit of Raukos. Their purpose was to prevent the warp rift from ever being used by the servants of the ruinous powers again. This was an unpopular decision with the primaris Marines of the newborn Wolfspear, who sought always to remain on the front lines of the Imperial counter-offensive, as they believed proper for the true sons of Leman Russ. Cordon Impenetra. The Dark Kraken's chapter and elements of the Wolfspear are currently fighting a tendril of High Fleet Leviathan in the Pancalis subsector of the Octaris sector. the Dark Kraken's 5th Company and other Dark Kraken's forces under the command of Captain Krigeni Lucero, known as the Strike Force Lucero, were dispatched by Chapter Master Mezonki Reo to the 3 planets in the Bayanzir's Hollow system to clear them of the Tyranid scourge. They were aided by the Wolfspear, which also joined the fighting on the frozen death world oddly named Death of Bayanzir. Chapter Organization. For all their ties of brotherhood with the Space Wolves, the Wolfspear organized themselves in a highly independent fashion, modeling their practice on neither the great companies of Fenris nor the tenets of the Codex Astartes. The chapter functions as a heptarchy, grouping its warriors into 7 distinct battle hosts known as Jarldoms. These trace their origin to the earliest engagements fought by the Grey Shields of Leman Russ's genetic lineage, who were later sworn to the Wolfspear. Battle by battle, they gradually gathered into 7 hunting packs, each small and agile enough to pursue elusive targets and fight on the move. Never recognized officially while attached to the Indomitus Crusade, these 7 packs grew tighter as they hunted and bled together, and when addressing the matter of the Wolfspear chapter's organization, Logan Grimnar recognized that only a fool would prize apart such battle-forged loyalties. While he sanctioned the Wolfspear's chosen unorthodoxies, Grimnar ruled that each hunting pack should formally elect an alpha from among their number, a proven warrior who would marshal their kin in the same manner as the Wolf Lord of Fenris. Like the Wolf Lords, these leaders were granted all the resources needed to wage war in an autonomous way, and each now sails the sea of stars with a powerful arsenal of weapons and war machines at his disposal, along with enough primaris marines to at least equal the fighting strength of a conventional Codex Astartes company. Due to the wide-ranging nature of the Wolfspear's mission and fighting style, the chapter is highly decentralized in its command structure, and each Jarl, as its Wolf Lords chose to be known, leads his own warriors as he sees fit, consulting with the Wolf Priests, Rune Priests, and Iron Priests, who accompany him. Only at times of utmost need, the Jarls look to a higher authority to govern their actions, and in these circumstances, a High Jarl is nominated from amongst the 7, one tasked with uniting the Jarldoms to bring down a formidable foe or lend the full weight of the chapter to wider imperial objectives. Like much of Wolfspear custom, this practice is rooted in pragmatic spoken oaths rather than codified law, and many yet evolve as the chapter grows longer of tooth. To date, the fraternal instincts of the Wolfspear have proved stronger than any differences of character or personality between the Jarls, and the chapter has shown an almost preternatural ability to coordinate their scattered forces when the need arises. Other ranks. High Jarl. The High Jarl is the title granted by the Wolfspear to their chapter master. Jarl. A Jarl is a title used by the Wolfspear for the officer rank the Space Wolves call Wolf Lord, and Codex Astartes compliant chapters refer to as a captain. Essentially the commander of an Astartes company-sized formation, though the Wolfspear call their companies Jarldoms. Battle Leader. Battle Leader is a term used by both the Space Wolves and the Wolfspear for a Space Marine Lieutenant, the commander of a demi company. Line ranks. Pack Leader. Sergeant. A pack leader is the term used by the Wolfspear, like the Space Wolves, for what other chapters would name a Space Marine Sergeant. Battle Brother. Initiate. Training ranks. Neophyte and Aspirant. Specialist units and formations. Wolfguard. Some Wolfspear, having achieved feats of exceptional valor and martial prowess, may become members of the chapter's version of the Space Wolves' Wolfguard. These mighty Astartes can lead smaller forces of Wolfspear drawn from other Jarldoms, serve as the Wolfspear's version of an honor guard for the most experienced warrior in a deployed Wolfspear force, or serve as the pack leader for Jarldom's squads. Imparting their knowledge and experience to their younger charges, and serving as the equivalent of standard Space Marine sergeants. Thunderwolf Cavalry. Thunderwolf Cavalry units are a subgroup of the Wolfspear's Wolf Guard. According to official Imperial records, the Thunderwolf Cavalry doesn't exist, and the Space Wolves and their Successor chapters keep them as a closely guarded secret. Thunderwolves are giant Fenrisian wolves that stand about the height of a Terran rhinoceros, and are used as mounts by the most elite members of the Wolf Guard. Thunderwolves are used in the near-mythical Thunderwolf Cavalry, and are often augmented with adamantium jaws, Imperial bionics, and back-jointed metal limbs that end in razor-sharp blades. The havoc that these creatures are capable of wreaking is said to be startling to even a hardened veteran Wolfspear. The taming of a Thunderwolf is often used as a ritual trial for a Wolfspear who wishes to rise into the ranks of the Wolf Guard. Wolf Scouts. For some Wolfspear Astartes, the close-knit and boisterous brotherhood of the pack is not well suited to their personality, as they yearn for the open space and isolation of the Sea of Stars. These Space Marines are selected to become part of Yaldum's Wolf Scout force, providing reconnaissance and disrupting enemy movements. These Space Marines are often already veterans, as opposed to the raw neophytes commonly used in other Space Marine Scout Marine squads. Rune Priests and Hounds of Morkai. Amongst the Wolfspear and most other Ultima founding successors of the Space Wolves, there are a select few who possess tempestuous psychic abilities. Like the Rune Priests of Fenris, these powerful Astartes battle psychers wield their mental might to aid their brothers and call down ruinous storms upon their foes. Wolfspear Rune Priests are particularly sinister specimens of their kind, often wreathed in billowing shadow, through which only their ice-blue eyes can be seen. They use their elemental gifts to strike terror and panic into the enemy, plunging the battlefield into eerie darkness before wreaking havoc with flensing blizzards and deadly lightning blasts. The Wolfspear also make frequent use of the psycho hunting packs known as Hounds of Morkai. Marked beneath their Phobos armor with powerful runes of warding, these specialist killers are a formidable threat to enemy warp wielders, and their chilling presence has been known to reduce their psycho's quarry to whimpering wretches even before their knives and pistols complete the kill. Chapter Combat Doctrine. The warriors of the Wolfspear are master pack hunters. Every aspect of their combat doctrine focused on the coordinated tracking, pursuit, and destruction of their quarry. The first scent of the foe can be picked up in many ways. Sometimes a single psychic ripple will reach a Wolfspear Rune Priest and give rise to a chase, while other trails may arise by following signs left amidst the rubble of broken cities or the wreckage of ambushed fleets. Whatever the initial trace, the Wolfspear close upon their enemy in complete stealth, observing their behavior and movements until their weaknesses become clear. Phobos armored infiltrator packs excel in this role, prowling behind enemy lines to probe defenses and quickly silence threats that would slow the main Wolfspear assault. Next, Eliminator packs begin a campaign of terror that relents only when the battle is won, sowing panic and confusion with long-ranged assassinations from the shadows. With the enemy wrong-footed and bleeding, the full Wolfspear attack begins. Utilizing speed and surprise, squadrons of outriders and swift anti-gravitic transport strikes from multiple angles, severing avenues of escape and drawing valuable targets away from the protection of their allies. Thunderwolf cavalry and other close support packs then encircle their isolated foes and move in for the killing bite, capitalizing on the fear that Blood Brothers have instilled in the prey. As much as possible, the Wolfspear translate these same tactics to the void, terrorizing and outmaneuvering larger fleets and launching precision strikes to tear the throats from the most vulnerable targets. Where such clashes can differ markedly from ground operations is the pursuit phase, however. owing to the vastness of space. Once the Wolfspear have made contact with enemy vessels, they will gladly chase those who attempt to evade them. Whether the trail spans star systems, sectors, or even nether realms of the warp, the Wolfspear regards such pursuits as a test of their stamina and patience, knowing that their targets will eventually tire or succumb to the wounds dealt to them at the battle's outset. Bled dry and haunted by spectral pursuers they cannot shake off, many targets lose the will to flee, and yield easily when the Wolfspear boarding craft finally make impact. Chapter Beliefs. Longing for a hearth. Though they would be quick to deny it, the lack of a permanent homeworld colours the psyche of the Wolfspear on a subliminal level. As sons of Leman Russ, they are innately territorial beings, and their deployment deep in the sea of stars offers a chapter scant opportunity to claim long-term hunting grounds or win victories in the name of a planetary fastness of their own. Amongst other genetic descendants of Russ, there are those who scent in their Wolfspear kin a silent yearning for a hearth that will one day be theirs to fortify and defend with the same ferocity that the Fang is defended by the space wolves. A stronghold that, like the Fang, will echo with the chanting of sagas and the remembrance of the battle slain. Perhaps for this reason, Wolfspear forces have been known to punish dug-in foes without mercy, razing fortifications and butchering their garrisons far beyond the needs of victory. Outwardly, they would explain this savagery as retribution against static foes who rob them of the thrill of pursuit. But equally likely is that they view any attempt to hold fortified positions against them as a mockery of their nomadic state. The Oathbound. Like their parent chapter, the Wolfspear place great importance in tradition, and the ancient practice of oath-making is central to their culture. As the chapter's saga grows more lengthy with each passing battle, the deeds of their fallen heroes weigh heavier upon those that still live. Valorous acts must be honoured with yet greater heroism, and the slain must be avenged. To bind themselves to this duty, Wolfspear warriors make solemn vows before battle and carve runic representations of them into their weapons and armour, often inlaying these with burnished metal or the powdered bones of lost comrades. Some warriors also ink their oaths into their very flesh, so to look upon the bared face of a Wolfspear veteran is like viewing an ancient runestone covered in sigils. When several Wolfspear brethren are pledged to a similar cause, they will sometimes form into sub-pacts dedicated to their sacred oath. Whether sworn to hunt down the killer of their fallen alpha, or to destroy a fastness used by heretical cults, these oathbound drink together in firelit halls and salute their common purpose with raised horns of mead. Though ever loyal to their Jarl and the broader goals of the chapter, few factors can stay the wrath of such transhuman warriors when their sworn objective comes within reach. Chapter Geneseed. The Wolfspear are proud genetic sons of the Primarch Leman Russ and feel a strong sense of kinship with all who share the Wolf King's genetic legacy. Like their forefather, they exhibit the keen senses and instinctive aggression of born hunters, and though they rarely show the fiery emotions that mark out many of their kin, the Wolfspear's struggle to contain their inner beast is no less intense. When the primaris marine creation technologies were first presented to the Space Wolves, Ulrich the Slayer proposed that they might be the key to overcoming the bestial genetic flaw that resides within every son of Russ, the curse of the Wolfen. The Wolf High Priest's hopes were not borne out, however. In the Wolfspear and all other primaris descendants of Leman Russ, this genetic anomaly lives on, and from the moment aspirants receive the Canis Helix, a lifelong physical and mental battle begins. Like outnumbered space wolves before them, any Wolfspear warrior may become overwhelmed by his inner savagery during the heat of battle and descend into a berserk frenzy. For some, this state subsides with the ceasing of combat. For others, the transformation is too complete. and they served the Wolfspear's feral Wolfen from that point onwards. Chapter Recruitment. As a fleet-based chapter with no single recruitment source, the Wolfspear have yet to establish fixed initiation rites akin to those practiced for millennia on Fenris. While the Space Wolves test their aspirants in the wilderness beyond the Fang, after gifting them with the Canis Helix, in what is known as the test of Morkai, the Wolfspear must be adaptable and conduct their own tests of Morkai across various sectors, across various secret, inhospitable environments. One such proving ground is the death world of Zordion, whose parched deserts are a far cry from the icy terrain of Fenris. Those cast into this desolate place must master the monstrous transformations triggered within them by the Canis Helix, and fight their way back to the Wolfspear drop zone, hewing a path through the Xenos horrors that erupt from the sands around them. Other aspirants struggle through landscapes more comparable with the Space Wolves' frigid homeworld, such as the perilous ice moon of Zindos II. Wherever they are tested, these warriors face the same gauntlet as their counterparts on Fenris, and only the strongest progress into the elite brotherhood of the Wolfspear. Unburdened by a home planet to protect or a wider battle line to support, the Wolfspear are free to track their prey into the furthest wilds of the galaxy, pausing only to seize what supplies they need from the beleaguered planets they find. The strike cruiser Umbral Claw is the closest thing to a chapter flagship that the Wolfspear possess. This vessel bears High Jarl Erik Steinhoff himself through the void, acting at once as the armory, spiritual sanctum, and lordly court of his jarldom. While several of these forces will gladly work in concert to harry and bring down high-value targets, each Wolfspear's jarl's flotilla is fully autonomous, capable of hunting alone for standard years if need be. This has inevitably led to subtle variations of culture and fighting style between the different roaming fleets of the Wolfspear, and on the rare occasions when the chapter convenes in full, the warriors of each jarldom gather to exchange hunting tales and scrutinize the deeds of their peers. Chapter Relics. The Elemental Shroud. The weave of this camellia-lined cloak emulates the movements of the elements. As a gust of wind passes, as rain flashes across the battlefield, as a haze of heat shimmers in the air, the bearer's form flickers in and out of perception. If the bearer remains stationary, they are clouded entirely, a ghost lost in the wilds. Totem of Storms. This runic totem empowers the rune priest who bears it. As they channel their psychic energy, the totem awakens, gathering a tempest overhead. Its presence is a reservoir of psychic energy the psyker draws from, giving them mastery of psychic powers manifested in the battle. Blacktooth. Blacktooth is a power sword kept under the watchful eye of the chapter's rune priest, for it is whispered that dark spirits empower its edge. It is bestowed only to warriors who hunt alone, for the bind between the blade and bearer takes a toll on its wielder. Chapter Fleet. The Wolfspear maintain no single capital ship that can be linked to the mobile fortress monasteries of some chapters, prioritizing stealth and agility over sheer tonnage or firepower. Instead, each of the chapter's jarls operates from a single strike cruiser, accompanied by a fleet of smaller escorts and attack craft. Chapter Appearance. The Wolfspear are one of the few successor chapters of the Space Wolves. Though they were forged alongside other primaris Space Marines in the Ultima founding by Archmagos Dominus Belisarius Call, the warriors of the Wolfspear still bear the genetic code of the Primarch Leman Russ, and as such, have much in common with both him and their parent chapter. Like their illustrious forebears, the Wolfspear flout the tenets of the Codex Astartes, ignoring Codex-approved insignia in favor of their own tribal markings and heraldry. Most feature stylized claw or fang marks, while others resemble the spearhead of the Spear of Russ, a potent artifact wielded by the Allfather during the days of the Horus Heresy. Squad numbers are similarly replaced with Fenrisian runes. Chapter Colours. The Wolfspear predominantly paint their power armour in a dull grey livery, similar to the light bluish grey of their progenitors, with the exception of their backpacks and insets of their shoulder pauldrons, which are black, as well as their faceplates, which are white. A dull golden imperialis, or wolf variant chest decoration, is worn upon their chestplate. The chapter icon is proudly borne on the left shoulder pauldron, while the right bears a unique red chapter insignia that indicates a Battle Brothers assigned battlefield tactical role, a lozenge for battle line, a lightning bolt for close support, and a triangle for fire support. Every Battle Brother in a unit bears the same pack rune somewhere on their armour or equipment. These runes, identical to those used by the human tribes of Fenris, are similar to the high Gothic unit numbers used by Codex Astartes compliant chapters, though the Wolfspear do not specify where they must be placed. Knee guards, tacet plates, and backpacks are all common places for the pack rune to be found. Also, Wolfspear Battle Brothers do not display squad numbers. Instead, they have runic pack markings, which are often displayed on their leg armour or backpack. The Wolfspear's chapter badge is a large white wolf's head face-on, fangs bared, centered about a pair of red spears crossed behind it, pointing downwards, centered upon a field of black. End quote. I sincerely hope you have enjoyed this brief introduction to the Wolfspears. If so, then please do consider liking and subscribing. If you do, then hit the notifications button, as I would not want you to miss out. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo, and back to the story. It all happened so quickly. They had scratched at the edges of his forces, ridden in and bitten, then backed out again. It was like catching at morning mist. They had whittled down his most important assets. Night raids had taken his armor and heavy support. Lightning raids had taken his best units, then melted away again. But the worst was when they finally descended on him and his ragtag set of survivors. They'd crested hills and allowed the traitors to see them. Finally. But then they charged down and began killing his ranked men. They were huge, as if possessed. Their fury was no less than the firstborn, but their strength, their stamina, their larger bolt rifles to gun down his men while still outside of their own bolter's range. Even so, hits that would have killed an normal Astartes practically bounced off them. Not just their new armor, but even internal hits. Their sinews seemed unbreakable, and they were true sons of their Primarch. None could doubt that. And none killed Astartes, like the sons of the Wolf Lord. The battle over, the Chaos Lords sat on the ground in chains, looking up at a Goliath of a Marine, obviously their leader. As he choked up blood from his internal wounds, he looked up and said, "How? The Russ has no successor chapters. How?" The grey-clad officer of the primaris Marines drew out his frostblade and took the head from the Chaos Lord, and dimly stated, "And now he does."